Danny Carter pulled his worn jacket tighter against the cold November wind that swept through the streets of Flagstaff. The sun had set an hour ago and the temperature was dropping fast. He needed to get to his sleeping spot behind the old grocery store before some other homeless person claimed it. 3 years ago, Danny had been a different man. He wore a Marine uniform with pride and had a wife who waited for him at home. He had a job lined up after his service and a future that looked bright. But life had other plans. The nightmares came first. Then the drinking that was supposed to make them stop. His wife left when he couldn't hold down a job. The savings disappeared. The apartment went next. Then came the streets. Danny had been living rough for 8 months now. He knew every shelter in town and which soup kitchen served on which days. He knew where to find day labor jobs and which store owners would let him use their bathroom. He knew which cops would harass him and which ones would leave him alone. Most importantly, he knew how to survive. The streets had taught him lessons the Marine Corps never did. Trust no one. Keep moving. Stay invisible. Never get involved in other people's problems because you had enough of your own. But some lessons from the Corps never left him. Honor. Duty. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. These words still meant something to Danny even when everything else had fallen apart. He walked past the old movie theater and cut through the alley that would take him to his spot. That was when he heard the voices. Angry voices. Mean voices. The kind of voices that meant trouble. Danny should have kept walking. He should have remembered his own rules about staying invisible and not getting involved. But his feet stopped moving. His head turned toward the sound. 3 young men stood in a circle around someone. Danny could see their breath in the cold air as they shouted. He moved closer, staying in the shadows. The person in the middle was an old man. He had silver hair braided down his back and wore traditional Native American clothing. The old man stood straight despite being surrounded. His face showed no fear even as the 3 men pushed him and shouted insults. Danny recognized the look in the old man's eyes. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of village elders in Afghanistan who refused to bow to threats. One of the attackers grabbed the old man's shirt. "Go back to your reservation, old-timer. Nobody wants you here." The other 2 laughed. One of them shoved the old man hard enough to make him stumble. Danny felt something hot rise in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when he saw bullies picking on someone smaller. The same feeling that had gotten him into fights as a kid. The same feeling that made him join the Marines in the first place. He stepped out of the shadows. "Leave him alone." The 3 men turned. They looked at Danny's dirty clothes and scraggly beard. They saw a homeless bum and started laughing. "What are you going to do about it?" The biggest one said. "Go find a dumpster to sleep in." His friends thought this was hilarious. Danny walked closer. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. "I said leave him alone. Last chance." The big one stepped toward Danny. Or what? What happened next was fast. The big guy threw a punch. Danny dodged it easily. Years on the streets had not made him slow. If anything, the constant danger had kept his reflexes sharp. He grabbed the man's arm, twisted it, and swept his legs. The attacker hit the ground hard. The second man rushed in. Danny blocked his wild swing and delivered a precise strike to his solar plexus. The man doubled over, gasping for air. The third attacker looked at his 2 friends on the ground and took off running. Danny stood there, breathing hard. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. The old man watched him with dark, intelligent eyes. "You fight well," the old man said. His English had a slight accent. "You have training." Danny nodded. "Marine Corps, sir." The old man smiled. "I thought so. You have a warrior spirit. What is your name?" Danny hesitated. He had learned not to give his real name too freely on the streets. But something about this old man made him feel safe. "Danny Carter." The old man extended his hand. "I am Joseph Whitehorse. I am an elder of the Navajo Nation. You have done me a great service tonight, Danny Carter." They shook hands. Joseph's grip was firm despite his age. "It was nothing, sir. Just the right thing to do." Joseph shook his head. "It was not nothing. Many people walked past me tonight. They saw an old Indian and they looked away. You saw a human being who needed help. That is everything." The 2 men who had been on the ground were getting up now. They scrambled away without looking back. Joseph watched them go, then turned to Danny. "You are homeless." It was not a question. Danny felt ashamed, but nodded. "Yes, sir." Joseph studied him for a long moment. "A Marine. A warrior. Living on the streets. This is not right." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small turquoise pendant on a leather cord. "Take this. Keep it with you." Danny tried to refuse, but Joseph insisted. He placed it in Danny's hand. "It may bring you luck." They walked together to the main street. Joseph asked about Danny's life. Danny found himself talking more than he had in months. He told the old man about his service, about the problems that came after, about losing everything. Joseph listened without judgment. When they reached a well-lit corner, Joseph turned to Danny. "You deserve better than this, Danny Carter. A man who still has honor even when he has nothing else. A man who helps strangers without asking for reward. This is a rare thing." He raised his hand and a taxi pulled over. Before getting in, Joseph looked at Danny one more time. "Tomorrow things will change for you. I promise this." Danny watched the taxi drive away. He looked at the turquoise pendant in his hand. It felt warm against his palm. He slipped the leather cord over his neck and tucked the pendant under his shirt. Then he made his way to his sleeping spot. As he arranged his cardboard and blankets, Danny thought about Joseph's words. Tomorrow things will change. He wanted to believe it, but hope was dangerous for someone living on the streets. Hope could break your heart worse than any hardship. Still, as Danny drifted off to sleep with his hand wrapped around the turquoise pendant, he allowed himself to wonder what tomorrow might bring. The sound of engines woke Danny from a restless sleep. His eyes opened slowly and he lay still listening. One engine he could ignore. 2 engines meant nothing. But this was many engines, lots of them, all coming closer. Danny sat up and pushed aside the cardboard that sheltered him from the wind. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky pink and orange. He rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe he was still dreaming. The vacant lot beside the old grocery store was filling with vehicles, trucks, SUVs, vans. They kept coming one after another, pulling into the lot and parking in neat rows. Danny scrambled to his feet. His mind raced through possibilities. Was this a police raid? Were they clearing out the homeless? But these were not police vehicles. As he watched, people began climbing out of the trucks, men and women of all ages. Some wore jeans and jackets. Others wore traditional Native American clothing with beautiful patterns and colors. They moved with purpose, organizing themselves into lines. Danny's military training recognized what he was seeing. This was not a random group. This was an organized formation. Within minutes, there were easily 100 people standing in neat rows. They all faced in Danny's direction. At the front stood Joseph Whitehorse. The old man looked different in the morning light. He stood tall and proud, wearing traditional clothing that marked him as someone important. Beside him was a younger man, maybe 40 years old, with strong features and long black hair. Several other people who looked like leaders stood with them. Danny felt his heart pounding. His hands started to shake. What was happening? Had he done something wrong last night? Was he in trouble? Joseph stepped forward. His voice carried across the lot strong and clear. "Danny Carter, please come forward." Danny's legs felt weak, but he walked toward the group. He was painfully aware of how he must look. His clothes were dirty. He had not shaved in weeks. He probably smelled bad. Here were all these people dressed nicely, standing straight and proud, and here he was, a homeless man who slept behind a grocery store. But he kept walking. The Marines had taught him to face things head on. When he got close, the younger man beside Joseph spoke. "My name is Raymond Whitehorse. Joseph is my grandfather. He told me what you did last night." Danny did not know what to say, so he stayed quiet. Raymond continued. "You defended my grandfather when he was in danger. You asked for nothing in return. You helped him even though you yourself have nothing." Raymond's voice grew louder so everyone could hear. "In our culture, we believe actions reveal who a person truly is. Last night you showed us who you are, Danny Carter. You are a man of honor, a warrior who has not forgotten what it means to protect others." The 100 people behind Raymond stood silent and attentive. Danny felt like he was in a dream. This could not be real. Joseph moved to stand beside his grandson. "These 100 warriors have come here this morning because of you, Danny. They have come to offer you something." The old man paused. "We are offering you a home, a purpose, a place among people who value honor and courage." Danny's mouth opened, but no words came out. A woman stepped forward from the group. She was maybe 50 years old with kind eyes and silver jewelry. "My name is Margaret Running Bear. I run the veteran services for our nation. We want to offer you a job working with us. We need someone who understands what veterans go through. Someone who has walked a hard road but never lost their honor. We believe you are that person. Danny found his voice finally. I don't understand. I just helped someone. Anyone would have done the same thing. Joseph shook his head. No, Danny, not anyone. Last night, 17 people walked past me before those men surrounded me. 17 people saw an old Indian and turned away. You were the only one who stopped. The only one who helped? Raymond spoke again. We have resources. We have housing. We have jobs. But most importantly, we have a community that takes care of its own. And as of this moment, we consider you one of our own. Margaret stepped closer. The job comes with a salary. We have a house ready for you. Nothing fancy, but it is clean and safe and yours if you want it. We also have counselors who work with veterans. People who can help you deal with whatever you have been carrying. Danny felt tears starting to form. He tried to hold them back. Why would you do this for me? I am nobody. Just a homeless guy who made bad choices. Joseph placed his hand on Danny's shoulder. You are not nobody. You are a Marine. You are a man who kept his honor even when the world took everything else from you. That makes you someone very special. Raymond nodded. We believe in taking care of warriors. All warriors. Not just our own people, but anyone who has served with courage. You served your country. Now let us serve you. Danny looked at the 100 faces watching him. He did not see pity in their eyes. He saw respect. These people were not offering him charity. They were offering him dignity. A chance to matter again. A chance to be part of something bigger than himself. I do not know what to say, Danny whispered. Joseph smiled. Say yes. Say you will accept our offer. Say you will join us and help us build something good. Danny thought about the last 8 months. Sleeping in alleys. Digging through garbage. Being invisible. Being nothing. He thought about the Marines. About the brother and sisterhood he had lost. About feeling like he mattered. These people were offering him a way back. Not just to having a roof over his head, but to having purpose again. To being part of a tribe. Danny straightened his shoulders. Old habits from the Corps came back. He stood at attention without thinking about it. Yes, he said. His voice was stronger now. Yes, I accept your offer. The 100 people erupted in cheers. Many of them came forward to shake his hand or embrace him. Danny felt tears running down his face, but he did not care anymore. These were good tears. Tears of relief. Tears of gratitude. Tears of hope. Joseph kept his hand on Danny's shoulder. Welcome home, warrior. Welcome home. Several people brought boxes and bags from their vehicles. We brought you some clothes, one woman said. And food, added a young man. And toiletries, said another. They had thought of everything. Margaret took charge. Let us get you cleaned up and settled. We have a lot to discuss, but first things first. She led Danny to one of the SUVs. Raymond and Joseph followed. As they drove away from the vacant lot, Danny looked back. The other vehicles were following in a convoy. All these people had shown up for him. A homeless veteran they did not even know, because he had done the right thing one time. Because their elder believed in repaying debts and honoring warriors. Danny touched the turquoise pendant under his shirt. Joseph had said it would bring luck. But this was more than luck. This was something else entirely. This was proof that sometimes when you do the right thing, even when you have nothing to gain, the universe finds a way to pay you back. As they drove through the morning streets of Flagstaff heading toward the reservation, Danny felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like maybe his life was not over. Maybe there was still a chance for him. Maybe he could still matter. Maybe he could still be someone worth being. The convoy of vehicles drove for 30 minutes before turning onto a dirt road that led into the reservation. Danny sat in the passenger seat of Margaret's SUV watching the landscape change from city to open desert. Red rock formations rose in the distance. The sky seemed bigger out here, wider and clearer than in town. Joseph sat in the back seat, quiet but present. Raymond had gone in another vehicle to make arrangements ahead of their arrival. Margaret drove with calm confidence, occasionally pointing out landmarks and explaining where they were going. They pulled up to a small house that sat by itself with a view of the mesas. It was simple but well maintained, with a covered porch and a neat yard. This is yours if you want it, Margaret said as she parked. Danny got out slowly. The house looked like a palace compared to the cardboard and alleys he had known for months. I cannot afford this, he said quietly. Margaret smiled. The house belongs to the nation. We use it for people who work with our programs. The rent comes out of your salary, but it is very reasonable. You will be able to afford it easily. Inside the house was furnished with basic but comfortable furniture, a couch and chairs in the living room, a table in the kitchen, a bed in the bedroom, clean sheets and blankets, towels in the bathroom. Someone had even stocked the kitchen with food, coffee, bread, eggs, canned goods, everything a person would need to start fresh. Danny walked from room to room touching things to make sure they were real. He opened the refrigerator and found it full. He turned on the faucet and clean water flowed out. He sat on the bed and it was soft. For several minutes he just sat there trying to process everything. Margaret gave him time, then gently knocked on the bedroom door. The shower works well. Why don't you clean up and change into some of those new clothes? Take your time. When you are ready, we will talk about next steps. Danny nodded. After Margaret and Joseph left, he went to the bathroom. The shower had hot water. Actual hot water that did not run out. Danny stood under the stream for 20 minutes, washing away months of dirt and street grime. He shampooed his hair 3 times. He used the soap they had provided and scrubbed his skin until it was red. When he finally got out and looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. He found scissors and carefully trimmed his beard, not all the way off but neat and shaped. He combed his hair. He brushed his teeth for the first time in days. Then he put on the new clothes they had brought. Jeans that fit, a clean shirt, socks without holes, a warm jacket. Danny looked at himself in the mirror again. He looked human. He looked like someone who mattered. The transformation made him emotional. He sat on the edge of the bathtub and cried. Big heaving sobs that came from deep inside. He cried for all the months of shame and struggle. He cried for the man he used to be and the man he had become. But mostly he cried from relief and gratitude. When the tears stopped, Danny washed his face and went to the kitchen. He made himself coffee and scrambled eggs. Simple things, but they felt like luxuries. As he ate, Margaret returned with Raymond. They sat at his kitchen table and explained what came next. We are not expecting you to jump right into work, Margaret said. You need time to adjust. Time to heal. We have counselors who specialize in working with veterans. I would like you to meet with someone a few times a week. Danny agreed. He knew he needed help with the nightmares and the memories. Raymond pulled out some papers. This is the job offer. You would be working with our veteran outreach program. The position involves connecting veterans with resources and support. Your salary would be enough to cover rent, food, and other needs with some leftover for savings. We also include health insurance and other benefits. Danny looked at the papers. The salary was not huge, but to someone who had been living on the streets, it seemed like a fortune.
What exactly would I be doing?
He asked. Margaret smiled. For now, mostly learning. We want you to understand how our programs work. Meet the people involved. Get to know the community. Later, we hope you will use your own experience to connect with veterans who are struggling. You know what they are going through. You can reach them in ways others cannot. The next few days were overwhelming in the best way. Danny met with a counselor named Dr. Helen White, who was patient and understanding. She did not push him to talk about things before he was ready. She helped him understand that what he was feeling was normal, that recovery would take time, that setbacks were part of the process. Danny appreciated her honesty. She did not make promises about quick fixes. She just offered support and tools to help him cope. Danny also spent time with Joseph, who seemed to have adopted him as a personal project. The old man would come by in the evenings and they would sit on the porch watching the sunset. Joseph told stories about Navajo history and culture. He talked about warriors and what it meant to walk a good path. In our tradition, Joseph explained one evening, when warriors return from battle, the community performs ceremonies to help them transition back. Your people sent you to fight, but they did not bring you home properly. The fighting stops, but the war continues in your mind. This is not your fault. This is because your society does not understand what warriors need. Danny listened carefully. He had never thought about it that way before. Joseph continued, We cannot change what happened to you, but we can help you now. We can give you community, purpose, a way to use your warrior spirit for good instead of letting it eat you from inside. Margaret introduced Danny to the other people who worked in veteran services. There was a man named Carl who ran job training programs, a woman named Patricia who handled housing assistance, a younger veteran named Kyle who did peer counseling. They all welcomed Danny warmly. They shared their own stories. Carl was a Vietnam veteran who had struggled with addiction. Patricia's brother had been a Marine who took his own life. Kyle had served in Iraq and came home to find nothing waiting for him. These were people who understood. People who had their own wounds. People who had chosen to help others heal. Danny started attending support groups for veterans. At first he just listened. Hearing other people talk about their struggles made him feel less alone. Eventually he started sharing his own story. The group responded with understanding, not judgment. They knew what it was like to come home and feel lost. They knew about the nightmares and the anger and the shame. Slowly, Danny began to feel like he belonged. He made friends with some of the other veterans. They would get coffee together or watch football games. Simple, normal things that Danny had not done in years. One morning, about 3 weeks after moving into the house, Danny woke up and realized something had changed. The heaviness that had been pressing on his chest for months felt lighter. Not gone, but manageable. He got up and made breakfast. He showered and dressed in clean clothes. He drove to the Veteran Services office where he had started working part-time. As he walked in, Margaret looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Danny. How are you today?" Danny thought about the question. Really thought about it. "I am okay," he said. And he meant it. For the first time in a very long time, he was actually okay. Not perfect. Not healed completely. But okay. And okay was a pretty good place to start. 3 months into his new life, Danny was starting to feel like himself again. The nightmares still came, but less frequently. The anger that used to bubble up at random moments had cooled to something manageable. He attended his counseling sessions regularly and actually looked forward to them. Dr. Helen was helping him develop tools to cope with his trauma. Breathing exercises, grounding techniques, ways to interrupt the negative thought spirals before they took over. More importantly, Danny had work that mattered. He had started going out with Kyle to meet veterans who were struggling. They would visit shelters, talk to guys living on the streets, hand out cards with information about services available. Danny found he had a gift for connecting with these men and women. When he sat down with a homeless veteran and said, "I was where you are," they believed him. They could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. He was not some social worker with a clipboard who had never missed a meal. He was one of them, someone who had hit bottom and found a way back up. The veterans he met would open up to him in ways they would not with others. They told him about their fears, their shame, their reasons for not seeking help. Danny listened without judgment. He shared his own story. He let them know that accepting help was not weakness, it was courage. One afternoon, Danny met a man named Greg living under a bridge near downtown. Greg was an Army veteran who had been on the streets for 2 years. He was suspicious when Danny approached. "I do not want your pamphlets or your preaching," Greg said. Danny sat down on the concrete beside him. "No pamphlets. No preaching. Just wanted to see if you needed anything." They sat in silence for a while. Then Danny started talking. He told Greg about the alley behind the grocery store, about stealing food from dumpsters, about the shame of having people walk past you like you were invisible. Greg started paying attention. "You were homeless?" he asked. Danny nodded. 8 months. Worst time of my life." Greg's walls started coming down. "How did you get out?" Danny told him about defending Joseph, about the 100 warriors who showed up the next morning, about the offer that changed everything. "The thing is," Danny said, "I had to accept help. That was the hardest part. My pride wanted to say no. I wanted to believe I could do it alone. But I could not. None of us can. We need each other." Greg was quiet for a long time. "I have family," he finally said. "A sister in Phoenix. But I cannot face her. Not like this." Danny understood. "I get it. But maybe she would rather have you in her life looking like this than not have you at all." He gave Greg a card. "This is the number for our veteran services. Call anytime. We can help. No judgment. No strings." 3 days later, Greg called. Danny picked him up and brought him to the reservation. They got him into a shower and clean clothes, connected him with counseling, started the process of getting him housing. Within a week, Greg had reconnected with his sister who cried when she heard his voice. She drove up from Phoenix and hugged her brother for the first time in 2 years. Greg looked at Danny with tears streaming down his face. "You saved my life, man." Danny shook his head. "No, you saved your own life. I just showed you the door. You walked through it." But inside, Danny felt something warm spreading through his chest. This was why he was here. This was his purpose. The word started spreading among the homeless veteran community. There was a guy named Danny who actually understood, who had been there himself, who could help without making you feel like garbage. More veterans started reaching out. Some through the office, some Danny found on his own during his walks through areas where he knew people camped. He helped a woman named Linda, who had been sexually assaulted while sleeping in a park. He connected her with trauma counseling and got her into safe housing. He helped a man named Pete, who had untreated mental health issues, get medication and support. He helped a younger guy named Ty who had aged out of foster care and joined the army only to come home with nowhere to go. Each person Danny helped was another life changed. Another soul brought back from the edge. Margaret was impressed with his work. "You have a real gift for this," she told him during a staff meeting. "The veterans trust you. They listen to you. We are seeing results we have never seen before." Raymond agreed. "We would like to expand your role, give you more responsibility, maybe start a formal peer support program with you as the lead." Danny felt pride swelling in his chest. Not the false pride of ego, but the real pride of knowing he was making a difference. "I would like that," he said. The peer support program launched 2 months later. Danny recruited other veterans who were in recovery to help. They created a system where veterans could connect with peers who understood their specific struggles. Combat trauma, homelessness, addiction, mental health issues. Each peer counselor had lived experience with at least one of these challenges. The program took off quickly. Within the first month, they had helped 15 veterans access services. By the second month, that number had doubled. Danny ran weekly group meetings where veterans could share their experiences and support each other. He also did one-on-one sessions with guys who were not ready for groups yet. But Danny's work was not limited to just connecting people with services. Raymond had asked him to help with security training for the reservation. Danny's military experience was valuable here too. He taught community safety volunteers about situational awareness, basic first aid, how to de-escalate conflicts, how to respond to emergencies. The volunteers appreciated his teaching style. He was patient and clear. He used real examples. He treated everyone with respect regardless of their skill level. "You are a natural leader," Raymond told him after observing one of his training sessions. "People follow you because they trust you." Joseph continued to be a presence in Danny's life. The old man would visit regularly and they would talk about everything from philosophy to football. Joseph was teaching Danny about Navajo culture and traditions. Danny learned about the importance of harmony and balance, about walking in beauty, about the responsibility that comes with being a warrior. "A warrior does not just fight," Joseph explained. "A warrior protects. A warrior serves. A warrior uses strength to help those who are weak. This is what you are doing now, Danny. You are being a true warrior." These conversations meant more to Danny than he could express. Joseph had become like a grandfather to him, a wise guide who saw something in Danny that Danny was only beginning to see in himself. 6 months after that morning when 100 warriors showed up, Danny was invited to speak at a tribal council meeting. He was nervous as he stood before the council members and community leaders. But once he started talking, the words flowed naturally. He told them about the veterans he had helped, about the peer support program, about the difference their community was making in people's lives. "You gave me a second chance when I had nothing," Danny said. "Now I'm able to give other veterans that same chance. This is not just about housing or jobs. This is about dignity, about belonging, about showing people they still matter. You taught me that. Now I'm passing it on." The council members listened with serious attention. When Danny finished, Raymond stood up. "What Danny has accomplished in 6 months is remarkable. He has helped more than 40 veterans access services. He has built a peer support program that is becoming a model for other communities. He has trained dozens of our people in safety and emergency response. Most importantly, he has shown us what is possible when we invest in people, when we see their potential instead of their problems." The council voted unanimously to expand funding for the veteran programs. They also voted to make Danny's position permanent with a raise. As Danny left the meeting hall that evening, he felt overcome with emotion. He had gone from sleeping in alleys to being recognized by tribal leaders, from being invisible to being valued, from having no purpose to helping change lives. It was almost too much to believe. By the time Danny had been with the program for a year, his reputation had spread beyond the reservation. Other veteran organizations across Arizona started calling. They wanted to know about the peer support model he had developed. They wanted advice on how to reach homeless veterans. Some wanted Danny to come speak at their events or train their staff. Margaret encouraged him to accept these opportunities. "What you have learned can help people everywhere," she said. "Do not hide your light." So Danny started traveling to other communities. He spoke at veteran centers in Phoenix and Tucson. He trained staff at homeless shelters in Flagstaff and Prescott. He shared his story at fundraisers and conferences. At first, public speaking terrified Danny. Standing in front of crowds made his hands shake and his voice crack. But he pushed through the fear because he knew his message mattered. He talked about hitting rock bottom, about the shame of homelessness, about the moment when Joseph Whitehorse looked at him with respect instead of pity, about the 100 warriors who showed up to tell him he still mattered, about finding purpose through helping others. People responded powerfully to his honesty. After his speeches, veterans would come up to thank him. Some were struggling and needed hope. Others were volunteers who wanted to know how to help better. Danny made time for everyone. The local newspaper ran a story about Danny and the program. The article described his journey from homeless Marine to community leader. It included interviews with veterans he had helped. Greg talked about how Danny had given him the courage to reconnect with his sister. Linda described how Danny understood her trauma in ways other counselors did not. Pete explained that Danny never made him feel crazy or broken. The article went viral on social media. Suddenly, Danny was getting emails and calls from all over the country, veterans reaching out for help, organizations wanting to replicate the program, media outlets requesting interviews. It was overwhelming. Danny sat in Margaret's office feeling stressed. "I do not know if I can handle all this attention," he admitted. "I'm just trying to help people. Now everyone wants something from me." Margaret nodded with understanding. "This is what happens when you do something meaningful. People notice. But Danny, you do not have to do everything. You can say no. You can set boundaries. The work you are doing here on the reservation is what matters most. Everything else is extra." Her words helped Danny regain perspective. He decided to limit his outside commitments. He would do some speaking and training, but his primary focus would remain local. He would not let the attention pull him away from the daily work of helping veterans, one person at a time. One afternoon, Danny was in downtown Flagstaff for a meeting with city officials about expanding veteran services. As he walked back to his truck, he noticed a young woman sitting on a corner with a cardboard sign. She was clearly homeless. Something about her reminded Danny of himself a year ago, the same look of defeat in her eyes, the same tension in her shoulders like she was ready to fight or run. Danny walked over and crouched down to her level. "Hey, I am Danny. Can I buy you some lunch?" The woman looked at him with suspicion. "What do you want?" Danny smiled gently. "Nothing. Just to buy you a meal if you are hungry. No strings." She studied him for a moment. Okay, they went to a nearby diner. The woman said her name was Lisa. She was 26 years old and had served in the Army. An injury during training had ended her military career. She came home to find her boyfriend had emptied their apartment and left. Her family was not supportive. She could not find work because she had no address. Everything spiraled downward until she ended up on the streets. As Lisa talked, Danny heard echoes of his own story. The cascade of bad luck. The shame. The isolation. When she finished, he told her about defending Joseph. About the 100 warriors. About the new life he had built. "I was where you are," Danny said. "Sitting on a corner wondering if things would ever get better. I want you to know they can." Lisa started crying. "I thought I was the only one who felt this way. Like I failed at everything. Like I am invisible." Danny shook his head. "You are not alone. And you are not invisible, not to me, not to the people I work with." He gave her information about the Veteran Services Program. He offered to personally help her get connected with resources. Lisa was hesitant at first. Pride and fear made her want to refuse. But Danny recognized that look. He gently pushed. "The hardest part is accepting help. I know, but you cannot do this alone. Nobody can. Let us help you." By the end of lunch, Lisa agreed to meet with Margaret. Danny drove her to the reservation that same day. Within 2 weeks, Lisa was in transitional housing. She was connected with counseling for her trauma. She was working with a job coach to build her resume and practice interviews. Danny checked on her regularly. Sometimes she would call him late at night when the fear and doubt threatened to overwhelm her. He would talk her through it. Remind her how far she had come. Encourage her to keep going. 2 months later, Lisa got a job at a warehouse. Part-time at first, but with potential for more hours. She called Danny with excitement in her voice. "I got the job. I cannot believe it." Danny felt pride swelling in his chest. "I never doubted you. You did this, Lisa. You put in the work." She was quiet for a moment. "Thank you, Danny, for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I did not believe in myself." Lisa's success reminded Danny why he was doing this work. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was emotionally draining. Yes, there were setbacks and failures. But every life change made it worth it. Every veteran who found their way home justified the effort. Danny thought about the ripple effects. He had defended one old man in an alley. That act of courage had saved his own life. Now he had helped dozens of other veterans. Each of those veterans would impact other people. The ripples kept spreading outward. Joseph had been right that first night. What we do matters. How we treat each other matters. One act of kindness can change the world in ways we never imagine. The program continued to grow. Danny hired 3 more peer counselors, including Lisa, who wanted to help other women veterans. They opened a second office in Flagstaff to serve veterans off the reservation. They partnered with local businesses to create job opportunities. They worked with landlords to secure housing. They built relationships with mental health providers and medical facilities. The network of support kept expanding. Danny coordinated it all with Margaret's guidance. He had learned so much about program management and community organizing. Skills he never thought he would need, but that proved invaluable. Raymond called Danny into his office one day. "The tribal council wants to do something special," Raymond said. "They want to honor you for your work. There will be a ceremony next month." Danny felt uncomfortable with the attention. "I am just doing my job," he protested. Raymond shook his head. "No, Danny. You're doing much more than a job. You are changing lives. You are bringing honor to our community. You deserve recognition." The ceremony would include traditional songs and dances. Danny would receive a special staff that marked him as a protector and leader. It was a huge honor. Danny accepted because he did not want to disrespect the tribe's wishes, but he felt unworthy of such recognition. As the date of the ceremony approached, Danny found himself reflecting on the past year. The transformation had been incredible. From homeless and hopeless to having purpose and community. From feeling worthless to knowing he mattered. From being alone to having family. Because that is what the people of the Navajo Nation had become to him. Family. Joseph was like a grandfather. Margaret was like an aunt. Raymond was like a brother. The other staff and volunteers were like cousins. They had adopted him completely. They celebrated his successes and supported him through struggles. They had given him something he thought he had lost forever. They had given him belonging. As Danny drove home that evening, he thought about all the veterans still struggling, still homeless, still feeling invisible. He thought about how many more people needed help. The work was far from finished. But for the first time in his life, Danny felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. The day of the ceremony arrived with clear blue skies and warm sunshine. Danny woke early feeling nervous energy coursing through his body. He had been told to wear his best clothes, so he put on the new slacks and button-down shirt that Margaret had helped him pick out. He looked at himself in the mirror and still sometimes could not believe the transformation. The haunted look was gone from his eyes. The constant tension had left his shoulders. He looked healthy. He looked like someone who had purpose. Joseph arrived to pick him up an hour before the ceremony. The old man smiled when he saw Danny. "You look good, my friend. Are you ready?" Danny shrugged. "I guess. I still do not understand why everyone is making such a big deal." Joseph put his hand on Danny's shoulder. "You do not see yourself clearly yet, but we see you. We see what you have accomplished. We see the lives you have changed. This ceremony is not just about honoring you. It is about showing our young people what a true warrior looks like. It is about celebrating the values that hold our community together." They drove to the ceremonial grounds where a large group had already gathered. Danny recognized many faces. Veterans he had helped. Staff members he worked with. Tribal council members. Community leaders. But there were also many people he did not know. Families with children, elders in traditional dress. Young people with drums and instruments. Raymond greeted them and led Danny to a seat of honor near the front. Margaret sat beside him and squeezed his hand. Relax, just experience this moment. The ceremony began with traditional songs. The sound of drums echoed across the land. Dancers moved in patterns that had been performed for generations. Danny watched with awe. He had attended a few ceremonies since moving to the reservation, but this felt different. More powerful, more meaningful. After the opening dances, several people spoke. Raymond talked about Danny's journey and his impact on the community. Margaret shared statistics about how many veterans had been helped and how the program was becoming a model for others. Then veterans Danny had worked with stood up to speak. Greg talked about being under that bridge with no hope until Danny sat down beside him. He did not lecture me. He did not judge me. He just shared his story and showed me there was a way out. Because of Danny, I reconnected with my sister. I have an apartment now. I have a job. I have my life back. Linda spoke next. She described her trauma and how Danny connected her with the right kind of support. He understood in a way other people could not. He made me feel safe. He made me believe I could heal. One after another they stood. Pete, Ty, Lisa, others whose names Danny knew well. Each shared how Danny had impacted their lives. Danny felt tears streaming down his face. He had not realized the full scope of what he had accomplished. When you are doing the work day by day, you do not always see the bigger picture. Hearing these people describe their transformations made Danny understand the magnitude of the ripple effects. He had not just helped individuals. He had helped families. He had strengthened the entire community. Joseph stood to speak last. The crowd grew silent out of respect for the elder. A year ago, I was attacked in an alley. I was an old man alone and afraid. Then this man appeared. He had nothing. He was homeless and struggling himself. But when he saw someone in need, he did not hesitate. He defended me without asking what he would get in return. Joseph paused, letting his words sink in. That night I told Danny that things would change for him. I made a promise. But the truth is, Danny changed things himself. We gave him an opportunity, but he did the hard work. He faced his demons. He rebuilt his life. He took his pain and turned it into purpose. This is what warriors do. They use their strength to protect others. They transform suffering into service. The old man gestured for Danny to stand. Danny rose on shaky legs. Joseph held up a beautifully carved staff. It was made of polished wood with turquoise and silver inlays. Feathers and beads hung from leather straps. This staff is given to those our community recognizes as protectors and leaders. It symbolizes strength, wisdom, and service. Danny Carter, you have earned this honor. You are a true warrior, and we are proud to call you one of our own. Joseph handed Danny the staff. The weight of it felt significant in his hands. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Drums beat in celebration. Danny stood there overwhelmed. He thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. The battles overseas that had scarred his soul. The descent into homelessness that had stripped away his dignity. The night in the alley when he chose to help a stranger. The 100 warriors who showed up the next morning. Every step had been necessary. Every hardship had shaped him into who he was now. He looked out at the crowd and raised the staff. Thank you, he said, his voice breaking. Thank you for seeing something in me when I could not see it myself. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for teaching me that home is not just a place. Home is people who care about you and believe in you. The ceremony continued with more dancing and singing. A feast had been prepared and everyone ate together. Danny sat with Joseph and Margaret, surrounded by the community that had adopted him. Children ran around playing. Elders told stories. Veterans who had found their way home thanks to the program laughed and shared memories. It was beautiful. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, Danny felt at peace. Complete peace. Not the temporary absence of stress, but deep soul-level contentment. He belonged here. He mattered here. He had purpose here. The turquoise pendant Joseph had given him that first night still hung around his neck. Danny touched it through his shirt and smiled. The old man had said it would bring luck. But it had brought so much more than luck. It had brought salvation. Later that evening, as people were leaving, Joseph pulled Danny aside. Walk with me. They walked away from the crowd to a spot overlooking the desert. The stars were starting to appear in the darkening sky. I knew that night when I first met you that you were special, Joseph said. Not because of what you did for me, though that was brave, but because of the way you carried yourself. Even homeless and broken, you had honor. That is rare. That is valuable. Danny looked at the old man. You saved my life, Joseph. You and your family and this community. I was dying on those streets, maybe not physically, but inside. I had given up. Then you showed me I still mattered. Joseph shook his head. No, Danny. You saved your own life by choosing to help someone else. That choice revealed who you truly were. We just recognized it and offered support. The work, the healing, the transformation, that was all you. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Joseph spoke again. This is not the end of your journey. It is just the beginning. There are many more people who need what you have to offer, many more warriors who need to be brought home. You have found your purpose. Now you must continue to live it. Danny nodded. He understood. The ceremony had been wonderful, but it was not a finish line. It was a milestone. The real work continued tomorrow and every day after. There would be more veterans to help, more lives to change, more ripples to send out into the world. As they walked back to the ceremonial grounds, Danny felt the weight of the staff in his hand. It was a symbol of responsibility, a reminder that people were counting on him, but it was also a reminder that he was no longer alone. He had a community backing him. He had elders guiding him. He had purpose driving him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Danny knew he could face them. Not because he was particularly strong or special, but because he had learned the most important lesson. We cannot do this alone. We need each other. When we lift others up, we lift ourselves. When we serve our community, we save ourselves. This was the wisdom the Navajo people had taught him. This was the gift he would spend the rest of his life sharing with others. The months following the ceremony brought new opportunities and challenges. Danny's story had inspired people across the state and beyond. A wealthy philanthropist who had read about the program contacted Margaret offering substantial funding. She wanted to help expand the veteran services to reach more people. Danny and Margaret worked together to develop a plan for using the donation. They decided to open a dedicated veteran center, a place where veterans could access all services under one roof: counseling, job training, housing assistance, peer support, medical care coordination, everything needed to help veterans rebuild their lives. Finding the right location took time. They needed something accessible but also welcoming. After months of searching, they found a property on the edge of Flagstaff. It was an old community center that had been abandoned for years. The building had good bones but needed extensive renovation. The philanthropist agreed to fund the renovations plus operating costs for the first 3 years. Danny threw himself into the planning. He worked with architects to design spaces that would feel comfortable for veterans. He consulted with counselors and social workers about what services were most needed. He talked to veterans about what had helped them and what barriers they had faced. The renovation took 6 months. During that time, Danny continued his regular work, helping individual veterans and running the peer support groups. But his mind was often on the center. This would be his legacy, a physical place that would continue helping people long after he was gone. Joseph visited the construction site with Danny one afternoon. They walked through the partially completed building. "This is good work," Joseph said. "You are building something that will last." Danny nodded. "I keep thinking about all the veterans out there right now who feel hopeless, who think nobody cares. When this place opens, they will have somewhere to go, somewhere that says you matter. You are not alone. We will help you." Lisa had become one of Danny's most trusted colleagues. She was running the Women Veteran Support Program and doing amazing work. She understood the unique challenges women faced in the military and after: sexual trauma, discrimination, the difficulty of accessing services designed primarily for men. Lisa had worked with Danny to ensure the new center would have dedicated spaces and programs for women veterans. She also recruited other women veterans to serve as peer counselors. "We need to see ourselves reflected in the people who help us," Lisa explained. "Women veterans need to know they are not the only ones who went through what they went through." The center needed a name. Danny wanted something meaningful that honored the community that had made it possible. After discussing with the tribal council, they decided on Warriors Path Center. The name reflected both the military service of the veterans and the Navajo concept of walking a good path. It suggested journey and direction. It implied that healing was not a destination but an ongoing process. Danny loved it. He had a sign maker create a beautiful wooden sign with the name carved in English and Navajo. The sign would hang at the entrance, welcoming everyone who came seeking help. As the opening date approached, Danny felt both excited and nervous. What if they had built this amazing facility and nobody came? What if veterans did not trust it? Margaret assured him the need was there. We have a waiting list of people who want services. We have been turning people away because we did not have capacity. Now we will. She was right. When Warriors Path Center officially opened, there was a line of people waiting. Veterans who had heard about it through word of mouth. Social workers who wanted to refer clients. Family members seeking help for loved ones. The first day was chaotic but beautiful. Danny and his team worked late into the night making sure everyone got connected with the right resources. Within the first month, they had served over 100 veterans. Some needed immediate crisis intervention. Others needed long-term support. Every situation was different, but the approach was the same. Meet people where they are. Listen without judgment. Provide practical help. Build trust. Let them know they matter. The peer counselors were especially effective. Veterans responded to people who had walked the same path, who understood from experience, not just training. Greg had joined the team after getting back on his feet. He worked with homeless veterans, helping them access housing. His story resonated powerfully. I was living under a bridge, he would tell people. If I can get through it, you can too. Let me show you how. The center also became a community hub. Veterans would drop by just to hang out even when they did not need services. They would drink coffee and talk, play cards or watch sports. It was a safe space where they did not have to explain themselves, where everyone understood. Friendships formed. Support networks developed naturally. Danny watched it happen with deep satisfaction. This was what he had envisioned. A place of healing and belonging. One afternoon, Danny was working in his office when a young man appeared at his door. He looked maybe 22 years old. His eyes held the haunted look Danny recognized immediately. "Can I help you?" Danny asked gently. The young man shifted nervously. "I heard about this place. I just got back from overseas 3 months ago. I am not doing good." Danny gestured to a chair. "Come in. Talk to me." His name was Kevin. He had served in Afghanistan. He had seen combat, watched friends die, come home to a country that had moved on and did not seem to care. He was having nightmares and panic attacks. He was drinking too much. His girlfriend had left him. He was thinking about ending his life. As Kevin talked, Danny listened with his full attention. He heard his own story echoed in Kevin's words. When Kevin finished, Danny leaned forward. "I know exactly what you're going through. I have been there. The nightmares, the anger, the feeling that nobody understands. I want you to know something important. You are not broken. You are injured, and injuries can heal." Danny spent 2 hours with Kevin that day. He did not try to fix everything at once. He just listened, validated Kevin's feelings, shared his own experience, connected Kevin with a counselor who specialized in combat trauma, set up a schedule for peer support group meetings, made sure Kevin had his personal phone number in case of emergency. "Call me anytime, day or night," Danny said. "I mean that. You are not alone anymore." Kevin left looking slightly less hopeless. Over the following weeks, he became a regular at the center. He started counseling. He attended groups. He stopped drinking. Slowly, the haunted look began to fade. 6 months later, Kevin was doing well enough that he wanted to give back. He asked about becoming a peer counselor himself. This pattern repeated itself constantly. Veterans came in broken, found support and community, healed enough to want to help others. The cycle of paying it forward that Danny had started was becoming self-sustaining. Raymond visited the center regularly and was amazed by what he saw. "You have created something truly special here," he told Danny. "This is changing lives in ways we never imagined." The Tribal Council voted to provide ongoing funding for the center even after the philanthropist's initial commitment ended. They recognized the value not just for veterans, but for the entire community. Crime rates in the area had dropped. Emergency room visits for mental health crises had decreased. Homeless numbers were down. The ripple effects extended far beyond just the individuals being served. Local businesses started partnering with the center to provide job opportunities. A construction company owner who was himself a veteran committed to hiring workers referred by Danny's team. A restaurant chain offered culinary training and positions. An IT firm created an apprenticeship program. The network of support kept growing. Danny coordinated all of it, working long hours but never feeling tired. This was his calling, his purpose. Every success story energized him. Every life change justified the effort. Joseph continued to be Danny's mentor and advisor. They still met regularly to talk about everything from program strategy to personal struggles. "You have come so far, my friend," Joseph said during one of their conversations. "From a man who had nothing to a leader who is changing hundreds of lives. But remember to take care of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup." It was good advice. Danny had been so focused on helping others that he sometimes neglected his own needs. He started being more intentional about self-care. He made sure to attend his own counseling sessions. He took days off to rest. He spent time in nature, which he found healing. He also started dating a woman named Claire, who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She understood the demands of helping professions. She supported his work while also helping him maintain balance. Their relationship developed slowly, built on friendship and mutual respect. Claire brought joy and lightness into Danny's life. She made him laugh. She reminded him there was more to life than work. Danny had not thought about romance in years. Now he was discovering he could have a full life. Purpose and love were not mutually exclusive. 2 years after the opening of Warriors Path Center, Danny stood on the stage at a National Veteran Services Conference. He had been invited to give a keynote speech about innovative approaches to helping homeless veterans. The audience was filled with social workers, nonprofit directors, government officials, and fellow veterans. Danny still got nervous before public speaking, but he had learned to channel that energy into passion. He looked out at the sea of faces and began to tell his story. He told them about being a Marine, about losing everything, about sleeping behind a grocery store in Flagstaff, about the night in the alley when he defended Joseph Whitehorse, about the 100 warriors who showed up the next morning to change his life. The audience listened with rapt attention. Some had tears in their eyes. Danny continued. "The thing that saved me was not just getting a house or a job. It was being seen, being recognized as someone who still had value. The Navajo community did not look at me and see a homeless bum. They saw a warrior who had fallen and needed help getting back up. That perspective, that recognition of my humanity made all the difference." He talked about the peer support model, about how veterans help other veterans most effectively, about the importance of community and belonging, about building systems that treat people with dignity, not pity. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Danny felt humbled by the response. After his speech, dozens of people approached him wanting to learn more. Some represented organizations trying to start similar programs. Others were veterans seeking advice. Danny spent hours talking with people, exchanging contact information, making connections. He was exhausted by the end, but also energized. His story was inspiring others to do better work. The ripples kept spreading. On the flight home, Danny reflected on how far he had come. 2 years ago, he could barely imagine speaking in front of 10 people. Now he had addressed an audience of hundreds. Life was strange and wonderful in its possibilities. He thought about all the veterans his team had helped. The numbers were staggering. Over 500 individuals served through the center. Hundreds more connected with resources through outreach efforts. Dozens of lives literally saved from suicide or overdose. But Danny knew it was not about numbers. It was about people. Each person had a name, a story, a life that mattered. Greg, who now had his own apartment and regular visits with his sister. Linda, who had overcome her trauma and was training to be a counselor herself. Pete, who managed his mental health and held a steady job. Ty, who went back to school and was studying social work. Kevin, who went from suicidal to thriving in less than a year. Lisa, who led programs helping other women veterans. Each of them had their own ripple effects. Each was helping others in turn. The cycle continued expanding in ways Danny could never have predicted. He thought about Joseph's words. What we do in this life echoes in eternity. One act of courage in an alley had created all of this. When Danny returned to Flagstaff, Margaret had news. We have been contacted by 3 other tribal nations. They want to replicate our model on their reservations. They want you to help train their staff. Danny felt honored and overwhelmed. I am just one person. I cannot be everywhere, Margaret smiled. That is why we build teams. That is why we train others to carry on the work. You do not have to do everything yourself, Danny. You just have to share what you have learned. She was right, of course. Danny had to learn to delegate, to trust others to do the work. He helped develop training materials and protocols. He traveled to the other reservations to provide initial guidance. Then he stepped back and let their teams run with it. Watching the model spread to new communities was incredibly satisfying. Back home, Danny continued his daily work. He still did one-on-one sessions with veterans. He still ran support groups. He still walked the streets looking for people who needed help. But he also focused more on strategic leadership, planning for the center's future, building partnerships, fundraising, advocating for policy changes at the state level. His role had evolved, but his core purpose remained the same: help warriors find their way home. One afternoon, as Danny was leaving the center for the day, he saw a familiar figure waiting by his truck. It was one of the young men who had attacked Joseph that night in the alley. The man looked nervous. "I do not know if you remember me," he said. Danny remembered. How could he forget? But he also knew people could change. "I remember. What can I do for you?" The young man looked at the ground. "I have been in trouble since that night. Got arrested for other stuff. Did some time. I am trying to get my life together now, but it is hard. I heard about this place, about what you do. I heard you help veterans." He looked up, meeting Danny's eyes. "I am not a veteran, but I am wondering if you can point me in the right direction. I need help." Danny studied the man for a moment. This was someone who had tried to hurt Joseph, who had mocked Danny for being homeless. But Danny also saw someone who was lost, someone asking for help. That took courage. "What is your name?" Danny asked. "Chris." Danny nodded. "Okay, Chris, I do not work with non-veterans, but I know people who do. Let me make some calls." Danny spent 20 minutes on the phone connecting Chris with a re-entry program that helped former inmates. He gave Chris information about counseling services and job training. Before Chris left, Danny stopped him. "That night in the alley you made bad choices. But that does not have to define you. You can change. You can become someone different. I believe that because I have seen it hundreds of times. People can turn their lives around if they get support and choose to do the work." Chris had tears in his eyes. "Thank you, man. I do not deserve your help after what I did." Danny shook his head. "Everybody deserves a chance to be better. Everybody deserves help when they are struggling. That is what I learned. Now I am passing it on." Chris walked away with information and hope. Danny got in his truck and drove home smiling. The circle was complete in a way. The person who had been the victim of violence had become someone who extended grace to his attacker. That evening, Danny had dinner with Claire. She asked about his day and he told her about Chris. "That must have been hard," she said. "Helping someone who hurt someone you care about." Danny thought about it. "It was easier than I expected. Because I understand now that hurt people hurt people." Chris was probably struggling with his own demons that night. That does not excuse what he did, but it helps explain it. And if I can help him deal with those demons, maybe he will not hurt anyone else. Claire reached across the table and took his hand. "You are a good man, Danny Carter. I'm proud of you." Her words meant more than she knew. Danny had spent years feeling worthless. Now he had someone who was proud of him. He had work that mattered. He had community. He had purpose. He had love. Life was good. A few months later, Joseph asked Danny to take a walk with him. They drove out to a remote area of the reservation, where red rock formations created a stunning landscape. They hiked to a spot overlooking a vast canyon. Joseph was moving slower these days. His health was declining, but his spirit remained strong. They sat on a large rock watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "I do not have much time left," Joseph said quietly. Danny felt his throat tighten. "Do not say that." "You will be around for years." Joseph smiled. "I am old, my friend. I have lived a good life. I am at peace. But before I go, I wanted to tell you something important. That night in the alley when you defended me, you did more than save my life. You restored my faith in humanity. You reminded me that there are still good people in this world, people who do the right thing without expecting reward." Tears rolled down Danny's cheeks. "You saved my life, Joseph. You and your family gave me everything." Joseph shook his head. "No, Danny, you saved yourself. We just provided opportunity. Everything you have accomplished, the lives you have changed, the leader you have become, that is all you. I am proud to have played a small part in your journey, but the credit belongs to you." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Danny knew this moment was precious, a memory he would carry forever. Joseph had been his guide, his teacher, his friend. The thought of losing him was painful, but Danny also understood the cycle of life. Joseph had lived well and served his people faithfully. Now it was Danny's turn to carry the torch forward. Joseph passed away peacefully 3 months later, surrounded by family. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. Danny spoke about the night in the alley, about the 100 warriors, about everything Joseph had taught him. Joseph Whitehorse saw the best in people, Danny said. He looked past circumstances and saw souls. He taught me that everyone deserves dignity and respect, that warriors use their strength to protect others, that what we do matters. I will spend the rest of my life honoring his memory by living those values. After the funeral, Raymond approached Danny. My grandfather loved you like a son. He was so proud of what you built. We all are. Danny hugged him. I would not be here without your family, without your community. You all gave me a second chance at life. I will never forget that. Life continued. The work continued. Danny kept helping veterans one person at a time. The center kept growing, serving more people every year.